I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
Charlie, if you want to, you can. I don't know. I think you can sit there on the couch. I think Stephen was going to sit there.
Steven's sitting by the door. He'll kick you out of his chair.
But you can get us on the couch.
He'll be nice about it. He won't kick you out of his chair.
If you're more comfortable sitting in the chair, then So,
Sit down, Zool.
so this is section 3, and we're going to go over 5 elements in the emotions. And most of y'all that have, well, the ones of y'all that have been to the EFT tapping on Thursdays and done that, some of this will be just a really quick overview, and you'll get it a lot deeper. We're also going to go over some body parts and how they relate to consciousness, just the beginning of it, and go deeper and deeper into it. We're going over the skeletal system, muscles, organs, and endocrines. So in this little packet, section 3, there's lots of maps that you can use for yourself. You know, whether you have a muscle pain or an issue, a body problem. I recommend actually laminating most of the sheets in this. I don't know if you've seen the small little laminated sheets, but what I've done is I've just laminated different sheets and always use them for like reference. So different things we cover, I just laminate like the emotions. Most of y'all have seen that. I've got like acupuncture point 1 here, the muscles and meridians. And then this is a class I teach separately related to the muscles, and it shows the muscles and the emotions and the organ on the body and the time frame. You're going to have most of that in which we have tonight. It's just not going to be in this perfect form, or not perfect form, but this form that's a little bit better. And reflexology, and all these are nice little reference maps, because that's all it is to me. All these physical things that go on are just an echo of what's going on in the mind, in consciousness, and it's individual and collective consciousness. So what we see globally happening around the world is actually the collective being cleared and growing, expanding. Just like I mentioned last week about Hitler. To me, that was something that happened in the collective that had to be cleared out or brought to the surface. Not that that's completely cleared out, but I think a large aspect of that was, and that more people are more aware of that, then you guard against it. You know what I mean? It's like bad things typically happen because people are unaware of them happening, right? Bad things happen in the dark, which is just ignorance, right? When there's light shown on it, then it can change, right? Not only do people come in to change it, but also usually light coming in helps illuminate people in their own way. And just before we started, which fits in perfectly, Tracy was talking about a movie she had watched. Was it called Dharma?
The Dharma Brothers.
But about this meditation, bringing it into prisons and how that's transforming people. So it's light, bringing light into darkness. Darkness cannot win. If you have like a room full of light, you can't put dark into it. It's just impossible. But the opposite, you can't help but do. And I've said this before, but when I was a kid, I remember going to Carlsbad, and they probably didn't do this anymore just because there's so many regulations and things these days. They take all the fun out of stuff. But whenever I went there, they had like this big open area at the bottom, and they turn the lights off, and then somebody way off lights a match. And it takes a little while for your eyes to adjust, but eventually it's like that whole cavern is lit up, and you can see everything in it. But just from one single match, that whole thing is lit up. So that's about the power we have to bring light into ourselves and into the world. And of course, the brighter we are, and the brightness that comes from us basically just means your awareness. Since light shines awareness into the dark, enlightenment just means how much awareness you have. And there's levels of enlightenment. It's not like one level you reach and then you're done with enlightenment. It's like it continually expands. just within your own life, light will be shining into this area, and then you look at that and work with it, it begins to shine out in more areas, and eventually your whole world is lit up, but that takes time. We're going through processes, so everybody's at a different level of awareness, and with each new level of awareness, you actually use more of your brain. I would guarantee that most of us in this room don't use, the standard 10% of our mind. Just from the concept of being able to see that a shoulder pain just isn't shoulder pain, you're using more awareness, right? Than the average, oh my God, my shoulder hurts because I had a car wreck. Well, that's like the tip of the iceberg, right? So we're going to go into body parts today. First, we're going to kind of visit this area a little bit. This is the first sheet, and it's 5 elements and 5 emotions expanded. So last time I talked about kind of the basic emotions, like we have anger for liver, gallbladder. What do we have for kidney and bladder? Kidney and bladder related to what element?
Fear.
All right, fear. And it's the what element? Water. Okay, let's just start this way. So fire is heart, small intestine, and its emotion is, this emotion associated with it can be joy or sadness. Like think about them riding on a seesaw. And the idea is that you're in between. You're not up joy and you're not down sad. You're content. So a content heart is better than a joyful heart. And it may seem crazy to say that, but if you're all la la la, and then somebody tells you bad news, your bottom drops out, right? So it's like you can slam back. But if you're content in the moment, even with something negative comes to you, you don't fall all the way down into sadness. You actually have some buoyancy there. So fire feeds earth, and earth are what meridians? Spleen, pancreas, and stomach. Okay, and what's the emotion there? Worry, yeah. And the easy way to remember this one is butterflies in your stomach. Butterflies is that worry and anxiety, right? So within earth you find minerals, and it's a correlation here. It can be minerals or air. And you can think about metal perspiring and air coming off there, but with the air and the metal, what are the meridians related to that, or the organs? Lung and large intestine, and what emotion is that? Grief, right? So in the colon, you're letting something go. Grief is letting that go, and then breathing is letting life in and out. And if at any time where you feel like you've lost something and you're grieving over it, which means you're trying to cling on to it if it's not moving right, then if you cling to something that's past, way back in the past, or you didn't have it or whatever, then what happens is it starts restricting, there's your rib cage, starts restricting your ability to take anything else in new and prevents you from letting go of what you have. So basically, it's like holding on to the small little rays of hope you have, but when you miss out on a lot of things that the world is offering. Okay, so we have water next, and what meridians are that related to? Kidney, that's pretty obvious. I mean, you can think about peeing. And what is the emotion here? Fear. And the thing to think about water is there's lots of different elements to water. Water can be steam, it can be a liquid, or it can be frozen, right? So water, if it's frozen, you can think about somebody being paralyzed. So phobias are an example of frozen water. It's like frozen with fear. And it's an extreme yin state, which means going in. So in a yin state, a perfect example of that is a baseball. In a baseball, all the energy compacting is inside because it's waiting for something to hit it. Okay? Anger is going out the other way. Anger is yang. So of the two emotions in the body, fear is the most yin, the most feminine, which is going in. It's trying to get away from everything and expecting to be hit. And anger is going out in the opposite direction. It's going out. And then water feeds wood. And what are the meridians related to wood? Liver and gallbladder. Good. And what's the emotion there? Anger, right? And then it just keeps going with the cycle. So here, we're not going to go into all these because you're not going to remember them, and I don't have them all memorized. And to some degree, out of all the stuff I have memorized, it's good to sometimes leave stuff open to your intuition. So if I'm reading a list or reading it for somebody or muscle testing, I don't have to do my mind doesn't have to get too active. So you've seen us use this a little bit, and as the classes go on, we'll use it more and more. So basically, as you're tapping on something, you'll get stuck on a point, And once you get stuck on a point, you go, I wonder what's here. And then you can go to this list and read, like this is lung. So you'd sit there and read the list of the lung emotions out. If it's yourself, what I like to do, if you know muscle testing or you have a pendulum, I like to read it and test myself. Because sometimes what I've noticed, if I'm doing myself with something, I may not necessarily pick out the one that's really the issue. And sometimes that's true in group too. Somebody go, oh, that one fits. But really, there's another one that they're not really aware of. And it's the hidden one that's really getting them. Okay? So, and we'll play with that. We'll do one tapping tonight if all goes well. And the more you see that, the more that starts to sink in. So this is an expansion of the different emotions. So you can see fire. Fire has 4 meridians related to it. And look at all the different emotions here. But ultimately, fire by itself would be sadness, would be the negative state. Okay? But then these other 4 columns are going to relate to emotions in that spectrum or relating to it in some way. Earth, you got 2 meridians, so you got 2 columns here. All the other elements, earth, metal, water, and wood, just have 2 meridians per. And fire is the most important element for life. We have a sun. If we didn't have a sun, we'd be dead. And that's our heart, and it's the most important organ in the body. If you don't have your heart, you're dead, right? So fire is really important. So that's about all I'm going to cover on that because, like I said, it's easier to go in session and read that. Just know that whenever you stop on a particular point, stop for yourself and read the list and see if anything sticks out to you, because it's a way of finding deeper information. Because remember how we did Edie last time, and we were tapping, and then all of a sudden the stomach came to mind, so I went to the stomach, and then it told me, just by being drawn to the stomach, that worry was really one of the key components holding the pattern in place. So her worry was keeping her stuck. So if you don't address the worry, then she still remains stuck. You may loosen some of it, but she's still going to be stuck. So this is just a quote. I like to throw quotes in every once in a while. Happiness and suffering come from your own mind, not from outside. Your own mind is the cause of happiness. Your own mind is the cause of suffering. To obtain happiness and pacify suffering, you have to work within your own mind. And, as far as the group being more aware and more conscious than most, typically what happens is we get irritated or pissed off, and then we look at the world and blame the world or that person or that situation, that government, for whatever the problem is. And really, it typically always goes back to ourselves in interpretation of something. And it's not to say that there's negative situations out there like abuse and things like that, but that gets into some other trickier stuff where you have to start, the emotions are supposed to push you out of that situation. I like, almost said Barbara Brennan, is that not her book? Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Body. It's a really handy little book. I've given away more than I've ever given away everyone I bought, let me put it that way. It's a very handy book, and it was like a precursor to this here because this goes into a lot more in depth. But usually you can look up in there like an issue, and then it tells you the mental pattern maybe, and then an affirmation you can do. And this sheet here is just a basic overall, a quick look at the body. It's so much more detailed, but this one covers some basics. So, and it's related to problems, okay? So if shoulders, okay, they represent responsibility and the burdens you carry. Remember Atlas holding the world up? But you don't really have to worry about it unless there's a problem there, right? So whenever the problem shows up, it's trying to tell you shoulders are responsibility. So the problem, the pain, is telling me you're having a problem with some kind of responsibility in your life. It's as simple as that. Does that make sense? Right? You're looking at something as being a burden, and there's lots of ways to look at it. So shoulders are responsibility, how you carry the responsibilities in your life. So if something's burdening you, then that's going to show up as shoulder pain, plain and simple. Left side. What's the left side related to mostly? The whole left side of the body? Female. So if it's shoulder pain on the left, what could that be?
If you're a woman or a dude?
If it's on the back, if it's on the back side.
That's a good point, Jim.
If it's on the back side or the top side, it's going to be related to like a female in your life, probably.
Right, exactly. So what I was looking for is that it's going to show up that it's females being a burden. And where Jim was going with that, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is if it's a female, sometimes the left shoulder hurting could be your own femininity being a burden to you. You know what I mean? And with the guys, the right side, a right shoulder pain could be our own masculinity as a burden to ourselves, or it could be a masculine figure a father, a brother, something like that, a son. And the front part of the body, we're not going to go too much into this because this is conscious languaging. The front body of your body would be yourself. So usually if the shoulder pain is in the front, then it's yourself, and on the back it's others. But what I've noticed with massage anyway, if somebody's hurting in the back, usually the origin is the front. So if you don't work both those spots, which I like to go and do, like hit both spots, then what happens is you don't get rid of the issue. It's just the secondary. So neck. Neck relates to open-mindedness and the ability to take on new things or open to ideas. And we discussed this a little bit, and we'll be doing it a little bit later, but what muscles are mostly related to the neck?
Traps.
You got traps, but you supraspinatus. I'm not looking for the muscles, Stephen, as much as I said it wrong. What meridian relates to most of the muscles in the neck?
Stomach.
Stomach, you got it right there. So it relates to being able to stomach and take something in. And whenever you're talking to somebody and they're like this, or like this, or they're like, they're really saying to you, God, please shut up. there's a degree. Yeah. It's like, what are your, and there could be lots of reasons. One thing is whatever you're saying they don't want to hear, they don't want to take it into their system, because whenever you're saying something, you're asking someone to digest or take in what you're saying. And if they're doing this, they're like, I really don't want to eat this right now. And we eat emotions and mental concepts just as easily, or just the exact same way we eat physical food. So these neck muscles are related to stomach and being open and up into receiving. And one way, if you see somebody that does this a lot, where their neck is exposed, that's usually somebody really gullible. They're like open to anything, like a little bird, waiting to be fed by mothers. Like, I'll take anything you say, which is not a positive thing. The whole concept about, bending over and letting people walk on you is not a spiritual concept. Turning the other cheek is not a spiritual concept. Breast and chest, and those relate to nurturing, obviously. For men, typically it also relates to protection, so it's protection and nurturing. Usually men are identified by chest, a prowess or a power there. You see, it's your ability to give and take from others, nurturing. It also can relate to giving to others. So let's expand this to like breast tissue. Let's say that somebody gets an issue around breast tissue. It could be a soreness, it could be a cyst, it could be a tumor. What might that relate to? Remember now, if it shows up negativity, it's showing that there's an issue with what? If an issue shows up in breast tissue, what is it saying? The person is having a problem with what? Nurturing. And that could be giving it or getting it, right? So if somebody's not being nurtured enough and they're in a situation where they give, it's like the cattle where you just put two little mechanical things on here and suck somebody dry, right? suck somebody's essence dry, but if they're not able to receive to replenish that, basically that part of your body just dies. So, and then left and right can be a component of that too. As far as left being a feminine related and right being a masculine. Arms and hands. Arms and hands are actually an extension of your throat chakra. Okay? It's because your throat chakra deals with what concept? Voice.
Speaking your will.
Communication is the main thing. Because actually, if we cannot communicate, we cannot grow. Simple as that. This group wouldn't be here right now, right? We'd just be some kind of enigma, thing floating in fluid and bumping up against each other. But it's communication how we grow. And you can tell when a relationship is starting to lose its ability to grow when what stops happening? You stop talking. You stop communicating. It's an outreach of our solar plexus. When we write with our hands, we paint with. It's all an expression of self. Okay. So hands relate more to how we handle things in life too, because it's all about working. But the arms and hands are all about communication too.
A lot of people speak with their arms.
Yeah, that's right. They do that a lot. Yeah, I don't know anybody that stands there like this and if they're passionate about what they say, it comes through. But if somebody's talking monotone, lifeless. But so stomach is the ability to process life, and that's mental, emotional, and physical. Because the stomach energy, you use that to process mental and emotional issues too. I have to really watch out for stomach issues, and I've changed a lot of things recently since January. But I'm always just digesting, taking in so much information. I'm chewing it up, processing it. And my thing, or if you call it a gift, or my energy, is it's like chewing something up into bite-sized pieces and giving it a framework that can be fed to somebody else. So I'm digesting not only for myself, but for other people at the same time. So I use this energy a lot. And when you do that, you got to be careful to take time to let your stomach rest. Or you start getting this concept of having too much. You don't want to take any more. You start wanting to vomit, and you start getting hiccups, and it's all about the energy going the opposite direction. Too much to handle, burned out, all those concepts. And I've done a little bit of everything there. Vulnerability. It's like putting on weight here is a way of protecting yourself. And we talked about the stomach also relating to spleen and pancreas. Pancreas is like pain, right? We got the word pain, right? Increase or decrease. And the main hormone of the pancreas is insulin. It's the first part of the word insulation. So when we eat a bunch of sugar, in a way we're trying to avoid pain. And since we can't verbally say what we need to, we create a physical barrier. And it's pushing people away. It's pushing people away and keeping people from coming close. We do that all unconsciously. The back relates to support, and there's different aspects of the back. Low back is typically support. Mid back is more about the heart issue, and then the neck again is more about taking things in. But the low back supports the entire upper part of the body. It's like the trunk of the tree, right? And men typically have low back issues, and the male-female, there's a mix. Some females have certain issues more than men, and men have certain issues more than females. And the reason is because men are typically supposed to be the support, right? The breadwinners, and they have the whole family riding on their shoulders, the responsibility, and they can get low back issues. Not to say that females don't get that, but men tend to get that because of the geared towards men's consciousness. So it's support in life. It's emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. So with a low back pain, it could be that you're not feeling emotionally supported by your intimate partner, right? Or feeling emotionally supported by a spiritual community that you're a part of. Because I've heard lots of times there are people in a church and they don't feel fed and supported, and it's like that's missing too. It can also be monetarily. You're giving way too much and you're not getting the support back. And at the same time, it's also ourselves. Are you taking the time to support yourself? Are you doing those things and asking for the things you need that will support you? Because it always goes back to what we're able to do. Our loins are issues with creativity and sexuality. That's pretty much a given issue. So those are always around creativity and sexuality. And they're also going to have a strong tie into mother and father because of the creative aspect there and the male-female energy. Hips represent balance in your life, being able to remain balanced. And again, the left and right will indicate where that imbalance may be. If it's left, it could be that you're having a hard time balancing your feminine receptive side with your giving. So maybe you're giving too much but not accepting enough in, or vice versa, the other way, you're giving or you're taking in but you're not giving as much, so that shows a restriction there. And stop me if you have any questions. Knees are related to pride, and they're related to willpower. And it's interesting to me, the whole concept of bending your knees to what? What do you pray, right? Basically that whole posture is saying, I'm bending my will to a higher power. And it's a powerful practice to bend your knees to pray. It's because there's actually that bowing to something more powerful, acknowledging it, and asking for that guidance in your life. On the converse is that right? On the contrary is locking your knees. And it's like the defiant child. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. And they'll actually lock their knees. It's like they'll hyperextend them. So you can get a lot of knee issues related to, are you bending your will? Are you being too flexible? Are you letting people walk all over you? Or are you being too rigid? That'd be the two extremes there, right? And also knees relate to relationships. So it has a lot to do with being in balance in relationship, partnership. Which, to me, that's all life is about anyway. You cannot go anywhere without having a relationship with something, whether it's just yourself or with nature or somebody else. Legs carry us forward in life, so leg issues typically relate to moving forward. Feet, this is how you stand, and it's also how you connect to Mother Earth. So it could be issues around not feeling connected to Mother Earth properly, For example, if you had a mother that really didn't nurture you when you were younger, you miss that foundation, what you stand on, right? You miss that foundational setup, then you're going to miss that energy and have a problem with being grounded. You can be way too up in the air, not down and grounded. Because really the physical healing energy has to do with being grounded. And I have to really work on that because I tend to be all upper chakra. I go a lot to my solar and chew things up, but then I tend to be up here. So grounding is important, and that's one of the reasons I restarted the Qigong thing. That does a lot for that grounding component. Anything that's a joint represents your ability to be flexible. So since hands relate to doing things, if you have like wrist pain or finger issues, it's like you're having some rigid thoughts or concepts around what you have to handle in life, right? Or so-and-so is being a problem to handle, or that situation. Shoulder rigidity would be like you're getting really rigid concepts about the situation you're in, trying to support, and on and on. Does that make sense? And that's a quick overview and snapshot of the overall body, but it goes more and more in depth. And each time we're going to go a little bit deeper. But this is a good sheet it's a quick little reference. It's like, just by looking at this, you could probably get 60% of somebody's issue if you know what you're looking for, male, female, left and right side, what the pain is, and then you can actually take somebody deeper and deeper. Like, so if somebody has a shoulder pain, it's like, play with this. And I am such a doubting Thomas, and it's funny because that whole holographic thing to the universe, I am 100% convinced of that. Maybe there's a few microns in my rational mind that wants to argue that, but I am so convinced that this is a hologram in a way that we live in. From our name, just the way the planets can reflect your entire path in life, the astrology, which, by the way, the astrology is meant to be rewritten, not live completely like that. But my name is John, my middle name is Thomas, my last name is Watley. So John, it's kind of got that prophet type of teaching energy, so I have that. Thomas, I'm a major doubting Thomas on top of it. And Watley, I ask a bunch of questions, right? And so what? And then I doubt, what? Then I got to ask myself, what? Yeah, but that makes me digest all this and sift it into a way that makes sense.
Well, and it's spelled W-H-A-T instead of W-A-T-T or whatever.
Right.
It could have been spelled that way. So it really does come out spelled differently.
These are the face parts, and the face says a lot, if it's not all covered up. These different parts here relate to, and on the face, typically you pay attention to where people have, the main things to look for in the face are deep creases and wrinkles and discoloration. Main two things that you look for is wrinkles and discoloration. Yeah, everybody gets some wrinkles, but we're talking like really pronounced wrinkles in certain areas, especially when somebody's young. Okay? So the liver has to do with the inside of the left eye, and it's pretty prominent in certain people. And I think I've had this one, but it's gone. I've gone through my anger issues as a guy. But I don't have that crease there anymore. And remember, the spleen is also the right side. The spleen has to do with the digestion, because it relates to stomach. It's also lymphatic system, cleaning things out. The forehead are the intestines. So sometimes you see people with really deep wrinkles in their forehead, but you can see, sometimes you'll see somebody 65 and they hardly have any wrinkles. I'm talking about like deep, deep wrinkles, right? Looks like somebody's like ready to plant corn or something. That type of thing. Your hair is related to your intestine villi and your thyroid. So it tells you your digesting ability and your thyroid. Remember, your digestion and your thyroid, this chakra go together, right? What else? Kidneys are underneath the eyes. Those are issues I have to watch out for kidneys because I can drain my batteries just because I'm digesting all this and working. Underneath the eyes are kidneys. And what's set on top of the kidneys? Adrenals, right? So it makes sense when somebody's tired that they have these dark circles, right? It's like you've drained your energy. The lungs are the cheeks. And sometimes you'll see people with really, really red cheeks. If they have really, really red cheeks, it's okay to have that if they run, because it's like all that oxygen and everything's going there. But if they have extremely red cheeks, it's like way too much energy in the lung area. And it could be also related to circulation issues.
So rosacea shows up as like a butterfly mark across the face, so that would be
So does
a lung issue.
it could be. It could be. Also, what is it? Thank you. Lupus is also that same butterfly formation, and that's usually immune system. I'm sure that ties in somewhere. Lungs is part of the immune system,
Right.
and sometimes most of those people have a lot of allergy reactions. So yeah, may relate that way. Oh, and also goes up here, which intestines. You know, hands down, if you've got a colon issue, you're going to have sinus issues. And I've had the experience where I've done like a colon cleanse, lots of different things I've done, and it's like my nose, I can smell more. It's like I can, the depth of my smelling is more when your colon is cleaned up. The tip of your nose is your heart. So if someone has a really inflamed nose and it's really beet red, there's some heart issues that are going on there.
Usually heavily drink related.
Yeah, and that does a lot to the heart. And then underneath the part right underneath your nose is sexuality. So, huh? Freeman.
Freeman or Freeman?
I think it's Freeman.
What did you say?
Raymond. Everybody loves Raymond. No, I think this part is. I think Stephen's right. It's called Freeman.
Freeman or Freeman?
Well, the frenulum is the piece of skin that's up here.
So it's got to be the Freeman.
Yeah. And it's also
I think
your
so.
tongue.
So it's talking about like deep creases in this area relate to sexual organs. So these are things to look for. Wrinkles, I've already talked about that. And typically they're deeper than normal. Everybody has average aging wrinkles, but like I said, if you get like planting corn wrinkles, that's a bad sign. Because also if you have those types of wrinkles, what does it indicate that's going on in the body to have wrinkles that bad?
You're not building your collagen.
Yeah, and
They spend a little too much time in the sun.
there's inflammation because the more somebody's skin is inflamed, the more the wrinkles are going to show up. Rashes or moles. So all of a sudden you get a mole in one of these areas. That's something to look for. Like a mole here might be some issues with the lung. And it's like if it comes up and it's like, huh?
You're not turning into Cindy Crawford.
Right. Or Madonna with her.
Beauty mark.
So,
You don't have enough money for plastic surgery.
and remember the mouth has a lot to do with the stomach. Upper lip is the stomach itself. The lower lip is the intestines. And then you have the corners of the mouth, which are the duodenum. Duodenum, thank you. No, I said that wrong.
It can be pronounced either way.
Genes,
Spelled that
duodenum,
way.
duodenum. And it's the crease on the outside of the lips, and sometimes you'll see, especially in elderly people, very, very dry. Even like white and pasty. That's that. And it's where that part of that body is it comes right out of the stomach. It's that first little P-trap. We actually mimic that in our plumbing. We have a little P-trap there too, after the stomach. And the colors here, you've got the chart related to the colors. Red means an expansion of capillary, so it can be way too much blood flow to an area. Okay, so and it's different. You can tell when somebody has nice coloring as opposed to like, good God, they look like they're going to stroke out. That's a difference. So red means way too much energy. Brown is usually issues with liver. Okay, and that could be on the, even have the concept of liver spots on the body. Those tend to be brown, right? Yellow is an expansion of yang, which can be pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. And, like jaundice and things like that. And what's really interesting is, how they help jaundice. What do they do if a child's born with jaundice?
Sunlight.
Artificial light.
Yeah. And what color is that light? Blue. Liver is in the yellow spectrum, which is solar plexus, and its counterpart is the throat, which is blue, right? They're totally using the appropriate color therapy, even to the chakra system, to balance that out. Because sometimes when an organ is too high, and you can use this in energy work. I play with it a little bit, and I usually forget to mention it. Is like, we have the three bottom chakras are what? Yin or yang? Masculine or feminine? They're yang, they're masculine, okay? Men tend to be about the earth, being survival issues, sexuality, and power. Okay, the heart is the meeting place, and then the upper three chakras, women always want to communicate. They're more intuitive typically, and when you find men in groups like this, they are more in touch with their femininity. And their crown chakra relates to being connected, which means able to see how things connect. It's like the God concept. So, wow, where was I going with that?
The colors.
The colors, okay. So, so the colors relate to balancing each other out. So if your liver is way too active, you would use another color, the opposite, to bring it down, right? Remember how they balance each other out? So if your thyroid is low, you might use the blue, which would make it even more powerful in that area. Does that make sense? So, or if your third eye, you feel like your third eye is kind of closing down, you might want to use the indigo color. If your, let's say your sexual organs, the energy's too much, what color might you use?
Orange.
Exactly.
The indigo. I tricked you. No, because if it's too high,
Oh, okay, it's too high.
yeah,
Okay, sorry,
I threw a trick in there. So if it's too high, you use the opposite color because it's working to put these two things in balance. And if it's weak, then you use its own color. And it's, huh?
If we're like doing Reiki and we see orange.
Good question.
Connected with that chakra
Uh-huh.
in that area, that would mean we want to balance it? What, I mean.
You have to go by your feeling. I mean, to say there's orange, yeah, there's going to be orange there, but what's the feeling of there? And typically you can tell when too much energy is there because things are going really, really negative. Okay, when not enough energy there, it's like the flow of energy has gone way down. So like hypothyroid is low thyroid, which means the high thyroid is low, right? Then you'd want to use the blue on there to give it energy. If it was hyper, which means it was way too high, you would want to use the yellow to bring it down some. Does that make sense? So it's a feel for it. And here's another way you can even take that to another level, is the left hand is a yin, right, receiving, and the right hand is yang. Which one is more forceful with energy? The yang,
Usually,
okay?
yeah.
So another cool thing to do with the chakra system, let's say that I have a low thyroid, and which usually means these are out of balance anyway. If I have a low thyroid, I may be overblowing here. In other words, I'm getting irritated and angry because I'm not using my voice to say what I need to say. So all this negativity energy is built up here, and this has gone quiet. So all you got to do is use the yang hand here to bring more energy, and then the yin hand here to bring more balance to them. And at the same time, you can visualize the colors.
And she was talking, Joyce just asked me, what do you mean by the colors? You can say light, or you can do cloth. You can do cloth that same color.
Yeah, and you can just think it. As soon as you think the color, you're in tune with the energy. But I've got like color therapy, flashlights, and things like that that are powerful. And you use the red.
Yeah, just the red.
Yeah, but you can actually get different color pointers that have different energies associated with them. Red is very pushy. You don't usually see red used too much in healing because it tends to piss people off and push things way too much. It's really good at moving a blockage, but if somebody's got a blockage, let's say related to the heart, and the heart is having a problem pushing it, you may push it over the edge. You know what I mean? So you gotta really watch that.
What about the different colored gemstones?
Those are
Same
perfect.
thing.
Yeah, same thing. You could use the color. People typically get like their own little chakra set. You can find a book that tells you what they are. Just look for ones that have the color. And then if in this case, if this was you put the yellow here and then the blue down here, or I'm going to put my yang hand here to make this more powerful and weaken this a little bit so they're more balanced. And then I can be doing blue and yellow or down here, or no, it'd be blue and blue. So I didn't thought about that before. Which blue is very calming, right? It chills you out, chills out a little bit. So green, sorry, did I say green? Yeah, green, and green is like, they talk about somebody looks green in the gills, it's usually sick. Like saying, ooh, that person's a little sick. And remember, liver gallbladder is the color green too. So it tends to be like vomit, going to vomit anytime soon. And it can be related to cancer. Typically, cancer is related to somebody when they're really, really pale. Gray pale, yeah. And you can see it in them. It's not just a hair color. It's like, when you look at them, yeah. When you look at them, I can usually tell just by looking. They look gray all over. And it's almost like a walking corpse. I hate to say that bluntly, but it almost looks like a walking corpse. Corpse.
Cancer literally sucks the life out of you.
True. Blue and purple are excessive yin. So sugar and soft drinks can do this. Make you excessively yang. Its energy is going in too much. So purple areas, bruises also relate to that. Bladder and kidney problems are black. So black colors represent that in different areas. Gray, already mentioned. Swollen also. Pale can be asthma or lung conditions, like there's not enough oxygen there, not enough flow. And white is typically a lack of blood. White's going to be slightly different than gray. Gray is, you really look at them and, like somebody said, they were like ashy. And their skin doesn't have a really smooth appeal to it. It looks really bumpy. You know, it looks uneven. It looks toxic. So the skeletal system. We're not going to go, there's 206 bones in the body. We're not going to go over the bones and memorize them. You can if you want. I've forgotten most of them. Just because I don't use them all the time. I know the basic ones, but there's the 206 bones, and they're related to the mineral aspect of the body. It's the mineral kingdom. It's the structure of the planet or your body. So minerals are extremely important for your skeletal system, and minerals are what give you structure and balance. And this came to me one time. The also thing about the minerals is metal. You know, copper wires and gold and things like that. They all transfer electricity. They all transfer signals. But here we've got a picture of an antenna, and here we have the skeletal system. I noticed one time, and I used to like carry around a big TV antenna when I used to do some talks, but it got to be way too big and bulky, and where would I store it? But because hardly anybody ever uses these antennas anymore. But what I noticed is that look how they got the little spines here at the bottom, just like your spine. Can you see that right there? You have the spine and you have the small little spines here, and this is just like the rib cage if it was spread out. So our skeletal system is actually the part of us that's radiating signals in and out of the body all the time. We're basically an antenna. And the mineral kingdom is the one that's in charge of that. We have to have those minerals and to carry that electrical current and to give us structure. Here's a cool little thing on the skeletal system. And I don't know if I'm going to read all of this. Let's see, time-wise. Oh, we're doing good on time. We're going to read it. Let me get a better example of this. Your thoughts and emotions shape your physical body. So by changing your emotions and thoughts, you change your physical body. Likewise, you change your emotions and your mental states by changing the physical body with exercise and diet. Also with posture. So how somebody's standing or sitting or acting, or you can tell exactly the consciousness that's going on there. And you get skeletal and muscular problems because somebody's holding a particular consciousness. If somebody's walking around scared all the time, they're holding certain muscles and certain bones in certain ways, right? And over time, those muscles will get tight and they'll have problems, and their body, their antenna will be, here's a cool thing, their body gets contorted to sending and receiving that emotion. So when you start changing someone's consciousness, their posture starts relaxing. You can actually forcibly do it yourself. Yoga is a great way of cleansing and moving things, or just being aware. You can try to stand up more and straight and keep your back straight and all those things. And typically it hurts though. When you've got a bad pattern, when you try to force your pattern back to being a better way, it hurts. You get uncomfortable, it hurts. But if you keep doing that, you can work through it. But just think about this, is your skeletal structure will mimic your emotional, mental state. And the longer you do that, the more you get tension in that part of your body, which is the feedback system. But think about it. It's like me taking that antenna on the top of my house and bending these things every different way, right? I'm going to limit what I get and what I put out, right? So now, how do mental and emotional states affect the body? In many ways. The skeletal system of the body is a good place to start. Our bones are the mineral kingdom of our body, and minerals conduct electricity. Also, if you look at the skeleton with outstretched arms, it looks like an antenna. A subluxation, which is a misalignment in the spinal, when you go to a chiropractor, they're putting subluxations back in place. And I'll talk in a second about that whole subluxation thing. Excuse me. Is an example of the relationship between mental and emotional states in the physical body. Most subluxations are caused when you try to tune something out. So in other words, we're usually flipping our certain switches off. It's like, I don't want to feel that pain anymore, so I'm going to hold my body a certain way, which my vertebrae goes click. And it turns, you physically mentally, emotionally, really. You're not conscious of the physical posturing, but your mind and emotion will make you posture in such a way where you turn off your ability to receive a certain thing. So you're turning that off in your body, which is a pretty amazing concept. You can turn it back on, too. Usually something you deem negative is what you're trying to keep out. It is like me taking my TV antenna and bending one of the brackets because I did not want to get a certain channel. Yes, subluxations can be caused by a physical accident, but I believe our thoughts, for the most part, cause so-called accidents. So if you're in an accident, where you get hurt is strictly going to relate back to your own issues because you're tight there or you're limited there. So even that, you have to look at not being a complete accident because it's giving you direct feedback back to your main problem, your consciousness. These subluxations lead to physical problems, which is dis-ease. Dis-ease long enough becomes disease. Because the nerves pinched by subluxations cause malfunctions and degeneration of the area fed by certain nerves, the effects of negative emotions and mental states on the body are unlimited. A few examples are colon problems, when we have problems releasing. So sometimes our low back will kink and put out and it pinches the nerve and our colon doesn't want to work right. Low back pain stemming from not feeling supported can cause leg problems, sciatica, indicate or not being able to move forward. Worry leads to overall fatigue. The list goes on and on. I don't know why I put that side note out there. Let's see, I'll go ahead and read it anyway. Also, when you dine on junk food, watch gory movies, listen to music with hateful messages, and accept ideas from others that do not involve love, your very being, your antenna, is being distorted. So when you let certain things into your consciousness, you're asking that part of you to be distorted or tuned into something limiting. I used to be a big horror buff person and like horror movies and being scared and things like that, but I don't go near them. Last time I watched one, once you start tuning into your own energy, you start actually manifesting stuff that you tune into. So it's a weird experience. I was watching this movie and then somebody threw like chicken at the house, and you're already on edge, and then from there, like 3 days later, there's following incidences that would just tell me I was tuned into the wrong station. Because wherever we live here in a reality, we may think it's very limited, but you can have everything from the most enslaving, controlling type of experience to ultimate freedom and expansion, right? And you can be tuned anywhere in here. And actually, we fluctuate all day long. So wherever you fluctuate, you're going to experience that station. So when I tuned into that movie, I tuned into a certain station. I realized I didn't want to tune into anymore. So I stopped doing the thing that was tuning me into it. And I don't regret it either. Your body comes together to make an electromagnetic antenna. Not only is the entire spine an antenna, but each vertebrae in the spinal column is an antenna itself. So each little vertebrae has a particular function. It tunes into particular things. And actually, the 7 top cervical, you have cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. The top 7 vertebrae are the archangels. The 7 archangels that you hear about, Raphael, Gabriel, those 7 archangels are the top vertebrae. And an interesting thing is if you take the spinal cord and you slice it, spinal cord itself, which actually the spine protects, inside that slice, it looks like wings. But each section you cut has a different type of wing formation. So it's like the spinal cord is like these angelic realm. And what do the angels do? They protect. What are looking for some messengers, right? And Mercury is an example of a messenger too. And he's the one who has wings on his head and wings on his feet, representing the angels, right? And Mercury goes back and forth from Mount Olympus, which is our brain, to the other part of our body. So that Jacob's ladder, where the angels are going up and down during Jacob's dream, is basically our spinal cord. And those angels represent the messages going from our brain to the rest of our body. And if we distort that or block that, that message is blocked from going to that part of the body. Pretty cool concept there. That we have archangels right in our neck. Not only is the entire spine, each vertebrae sends and receives different frequencies, your thoughts, emotions, and those of other people. So we're picking up messages too. So if somebody's telling us something negative, you may find yourself like posturing into that particular thing, right? Somebody's telling you something, you start getting angry, you start posturing in anger too. So your thoughts and emotions affect this delicate antenna. For example, when you do not want to experience something like sadness, the energy behind your thoughts and emotions will actually cause the spine to twist and turn. This twisting and turning usually results in a subluxation somewhere in the spinal column, which causes a pinched nerve, leading to a certain body part, which results in discomfort, disease in that area. And that's the pattern. It comes from the mind and body, sending the message, blocking it off, and then you get the physical representation. And this is a quote from Eric Franklin I really like. If your posture and thought processes are intimately connected, then, in a sense, your thoughts are constantly sculpturing your posture, changing your alignment. The reverse holds true as well. Your posture influences your thinking, your thoughts. Your thoughts are part of a powerful matrix that influence your posture. The flood of words and images around you affect the way you sit, stand, and walk. Both the pictures and the words in your mind influence the feelings in your bodies, which in turn feed our thoughts and mental pictures. So it's a feedback system. And, yeah.
When you said the top 7 vertebrae are the archangels, it reminded me of a little passage out of the Bible.
Yeah.
When someone was talking to some people and the comment was made, they are a stiff-necked people. They didn't want to hear the message, and so they were like,
I like that.
So, I don't know, it just popped into my mind.
Very
now
good.
I understand that, yeah.
Yeah, it brings a deeper meaning to it. Oh, I really wired this guy in. Had to wire him into getting the seat sit. So. And this is a small scale. I'll use the light of the TV to help see. See how there's spines that come off the back? There's like a Tyrannosaurus, you got a dinosaur thing. These are the spines, and they actually stick out. The interesting thing about them is when somebody's adjusting you, they're putting them back in a line. Okay? So think of this, if you go to your breaker box, you have the breakers where they have a little switch on there, you put it in here, turn it off and on. This is exactly what's going on. Your back is the breaker box to your entire body. Okay? You've got wires coming out. This is on the next page. Let me turn this on mine. So basically, the wires coming out are going to different parts of the body. And whenever you'd have this subluxation or you've been holding your body a certain way, you turn off the flow to that part of your body. So you manually can do it, like having an accident, or, and we mentioned this last time, if your heart's malfunctioning, like your oven overheats, it's going to keep blowing this vertebrae too, which is a feedback system. But the heart's going to be related to another mental emotional issue. So mind and body alone are always adjusting your spine, which is adjusting, basically, it's your breaker box all the way down. It's all the nerves that feed your body. And it is basically the angelic realm, if you want to look at it that way. And if you look at it this way, they all have wings. They all have wings coming off the side. They have a spine, but then they also have these transverse processes on each side all the way down.
It reminds me of Paul. From the movie Paul.
The Martian?
That was such a funny movie.
That was a great movie.
That was a funny movie.
That was done.
That was very well done.
It was very.
Yeah.
You need to run it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. And it's got a lot of truth to it, too.
How long ago did it come on? A couple of years, maybe. Couple of years?
I thought it was just going to be another one of those goofy
Yeah, I
movies.
think it was like
Yeah.
end of 2010. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few metaphysical concepts in there too.
Very.
Yeah.
So you can see that the whole spinal column is, and I've got this picture off Google or something, but you can see how we have the wires coming out of each side. It's identical how you would have your spinal column. So the spinal column is basically your breaker box, and it has access to every part of your body. And on the next page, page 21, it gives you basically a layout of your breaker box. So when you go to your breaker box and you got the labels there of what is what, which is a good idea to do, because if something blows out and you go out there like, okay, yell at me if this does it. That's why you label your box. Right? So this is basically, the page 21 is the label to your breaker box, which is pretty awesome. So if you have a particular vertebrae that keeps going out, it's telling you that this is an issue. Okay? Now, this is actually a sheet I got at a chiropractor, but we can take it deeper. I don't have this sheet. I haven't taken the time to make up a new sheet just because it's so in-depth, but you could say that, let's say that C5 is vocal cords, neck glands, and larynx. Okay? Let's say that that goes out all the time on you. What is it saying on a deeper level? It's not just saying that the muscles there are tight.
You're having communication.
You're having communication issues. So you can go to the chiropractor and put that sucker back in all you want to. But if you don't ever address the communication issues, you're going to have to go to the chiropractor for an entire lifetime to do that, right? So if you just go to the breaker box and go, this is... So the cool thing about this is you can play with it. Like T10 is kidneys. Well, now you can go to kidneys and look at the issues related to that. You've got the emotional sheet, right? This is how you start playing with the different maps together. Now you can say, oh, kidneys relate to this. I'll go down the list of the kidneys related to emotions and what fits. You can see what muscles, which are going to be in the next page, what muscles relate. If that muscle keeps going out, you can look at that, back to the breaker box, back to the emotion, back to the endocrine system. But let me go ahead and read this page about the breaker box, just so I don't miss anything. I'm just going off of memory here. Don't these two seemingly unrelated objects look remarkably alike? They do because they are. And remember, the physical reality... reality? That's a new word coming, right? Reality. The physical reality is a reflection of something internal. Just like this computer is basically just how the mind would work. It stores information, we access it through our meridian system and all these other things. So the breaker box is a representation to me of what's happening. So your house is like a being itself, right? So different things work together. And transferring this into feng shui, this is just coming to me, transferring this into feng shui, you could look at your house as an entire being itself that you live within and you have a relationship with. So, our spinal vertebrae and nerves work a lot like the breakers, and I'll slow myself down. I kind of got on a high horse there. I'm going to chill down a little bit so I can read better. Our spinal vertebrae and nerves work a lot like the breakers and electrical wires that keep our house operating smoothly. When a breaker is turned off, electricity, chi, transferring that to the body, stops flowing to the items the breaker wires are attached to. So using this, the page 21, the vertebrae, if you have a vertebrae going out, it's telling you which part of that body is being turned off, right? But our body is more complex than anything that we could build externally. And the cool thing about that is even though our breaker gets blown, all it means is we get like a brownout. We don't get a complete blackout. Because if a vertebrae went out and our heart turned off, we'd be in trouble, right? It just slows down in function. And that slow down in function is dis-ease, which eventually, if that breaker's been off too long, that mental emotional pattern that's been there really long will become a disease. There are two ways for a breaker to be turned off. It is manually turned off. You can go to your breaker, you can go to your chiropractor, and they go click. They turn that vertebrae back on. But one thing that I know, when you go to a chiropractor, how many times do they want to see you when you first start going?
3 times a week.
3 times a week at least, right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is they know that they'll set that back in place for you. And sometimes by the time you hop in your car, it's already back out. But wouldn't it be awesome if you had chiropractors working with somebody that was doing this stuff? So when they did the adjustment, you'd only need one of them because you got the real issue. Because all they're doing is, okay, this is not going to stay very long. They may not know this. This won't stay very long because the consciousness is not in line with it, right? So they got to keep doing that. Because remember, your muscles and everything hold a certain way. So if you put the adjustment in there, the muscle's still tight here, the consciousness that's making that tight is still feeding it, then you're going to keep blowing it. You can keep blowing it till the day you die. Next, an item like an oven, refrigerator, etc., or your heart or lungs, attached to a particular breaker, overload for some mechanical reason, which cause the breaker box to, quote-unquote, blow or turn off. And this is how it's translated to the body. When a vertebrae breaker has a subluxation, a dislocation, the energy flowing to that item that the vertebrae's nerves are attached to is greatly reduced. There are 2 ways for that to happen. It can be manually moved, some kind of physical impact, or a chiropractor, like a car wreck, causing that to go out. Or an item like the heart, lungs, or stomach attached to a particular vertebrae overloads for some physical, mental, emotional, or energetic reason which causes the vertebrae to blow. Does that make sense? And that's happening all the time. So if you're going to a chiropractor or going to somebody that's helping you get your body back in line, take this information just from this one class and find out what the underlying issue is. You have the tools now that you can tap on that while you're going to chiropractor. So basically, you get more for your money and you get a lot further in your work because, and the cool thing about the chiropractor, which would be the circuit breaker technician, is they can tell you what's out. You yourself are like, okay, that feels like, but I'm not sure. But he can go, well, your C3 is way over to the right. So that could even tell you, right, there's masculine issues related. So he can tell you what's going on. Then you can use the maps to translate into what's really going on and address it.
There's a tricky thing about that too, because if on one side you're hurting, it's usually the other side
Right.
that's the issue.
Yeah, so that whole male, that's what I was talking about, even with male and female or the front and back, it's hard to say completely. That's why you got to play with it. Alrighty, I'm not going to go over all these because you're not going to remember them, but this is a really handy sheet. This is one of the sheets I recommend you laminate. What were you saying, Stephen?
I said that's why they call it a practice and not a perfect.
Yeah. So page 21, I recommend that you laminate. If you go to your breaker technician, aka chiropractor, he can tell you what's missing. You come here, look at that, figure out what it relates to with the emotions and muscles, and then you go deeper with it.
Okay, so if your spine is curved a certain way or the other,
Right.
slightly,
Like scoliosis.
right, like, let's presume maybe you were born that way, I don't know.
Right.
Will it ever go back?
It can straighten out. It can straighten out. And the thing about the physical body, there can be like generic issues. Genetic. There's some switching issues today, I guess.
I'd rather have generic than the real deal.
It's like generic medication. They're never as good as.
I have to stay under that light for a week.
So, with the genetic issues, you don't just get like you don't just get physical issues with DNA. You get mental emotional. So what appears to be physical issues is really mental emotional patterns passed on to you. So scoliosis to me represents there was a lot of pressure that was put on somebody. And that pressure can be translated to the scoliosis, the spine not being able to hold it all. So right away you've got this concept of a lot of pressure being in that person's life, which puts pressure on the organs because it can be a huge thing because when the scoliosis happens, you don't have just a couple of breakers going off if it's extreme. You've got loads of them being turned off. And they'll be, and the spine compensates. So on this side, you may have the heart may be turned off and the lungs are diminished, and over here you got way too much the liver and the kidneys on, and then you have all kinds of problems. But yeah, it can straighten out. To what degree, I'm not sure.
So somewhere back in my genetic makeup,
Mhm.
just there's somebody, right, was under a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
and
or
they passed
or
that on,
or
because
or it was
I have
a
a cousin that's the same way, and
yeah, or it was a family issue. Like whose side of the family was it? Who is is it male? Is your
my dad's side of the
dad's
family.
side? And sometimes you can follow that back.
See, yeah, well, I don't know, mine goes to the right, so that's male side of the family.
But like
I don't know.
Deborah said, it could be
Yeah,
could also be running from feminine too.
okay.
So because you say that you're actually you say you actually tend to be more masculine, right?
Yes.
So it would be like retreating. So it's like going towards the masculine, but getting away from the feminine. Remember, the whole thing about life is balance. The yin and yang.
There's too much responsibility for all this to come back to me. I'm sorry, but I can't handle it.
That's exactly what the spine would mean.
That's right.
It's exactly what the spine would be saying. There's way too much responsibility and pressure on me. It really can't come back to me. You just channeled for your spine.
I'm sitting here thinking about this. This is too much responsibility.
No, but you just said
I want to
right.
rest on somebody else and let them get
Okay, look, she said rest too, right? The
Yeah.
pressure. Basically, you just channeled the issue that's in your genetic family,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So the buck stops here, girl. No, the buck stops here as far as you taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
Your,
Anybody else?
it's in your awareness about
Yeah,
you.
I know.
Right. So, and you can unload this program and straighten out. Fly right. But that's amazing. She said exactly what that. I don't want to come back to me. Back. Pressure. It's all. She just said back stuff. So page 22. This is a really handy
I
page.
love and accept myself.
Right?
Page 22 is a really handy page here. It's all about muscles. And even if you don't know what muscles are located, if you're not a massage therapist, you don't know about muscles in depth, you can look at the chart and make out pretty much where they are, right? I tried to color code this as best I could. So if you get like green, like the pectoris major is related to liver. So then you go to the liver chart. If you've got like your pecs blown out or something like that, or you have rotator cuff issues. Rotator cuff, you look at lots of things. Deltoid, the back end deltoid is related to the lungs, and the front is related to gallbladder, and on. It's a huge map. Again, the body is like consciousness on top of consciousness on top of consciousness, and it all works in this weird, crazy, mystical way, just like life does. But the more you play with it, you can see what's happening and going on. So remember how I had you highlight those particular parts the first weekend? Now this sheet here, you can laminate and be more aware of what they relate to because the colors are right there. So I recommend you laminate this sheet, the spinal sheet, and then the ones related to emotions. And right there, that alone gives you a crap load of information around just one thing. So, and you're not going to memorize all these, so this is just for your information. Remember the red is fire. The blue kind of came out purplish, that's water. The gray is going to be the colon, of course. Yellow is spleen. And then 23 is the back of the person. And of course, if somebody knows what muscles bother them, like if you go to the chiropractor, your breaker technician, they could say, well, your rhomboid, your left rhomboid is really tight and it's pulling these vertebrae out of place. Then you can go, right rhomboid or left rhomboid. That relates to liver. So liver relates to anger and on. And you build, from that you can build a very specific picture of what's really going on. Because this is all just a feedback. So whatever shows up at the tip of the iceberg has gone through a whole system first. You just didn't go bang, pain. That pattern was there long enough for it to get solidified into time and space. And the thing about how an issue becomes a problem, imagine that there's two scales here. I was going to buy some scales, as I like to use props, but I forgot because it has escaped my mind. It just came back in. Imagine that there are scales here, and every little thought I have in one direction puts more and more weight on something. Okay, so let's say this. I've weighted this in such a way that this problem here is a low back problem. It's got anger related to it, support issues. Nobody's ever been there for me, that type of thing. So if I do like an affirmation, and it took a long time to get here, right? It's like one little thought was like, so by the time it got uneven or really a big problem or out of balance enough for it to show up, it has lots of energy and lots of thoughts over and over, emotions, everything into it, right? So is one little affirmation going to be enough to pull it back up? Not always. Maybe mystically, magically, if you you do a lot of tapping with it, with the affirmation, or you have like a shaman do it for you, maybe that would throw it out of balance. But usually you've got to keep working on it, and each little drop brings that in. The cool thing about, remember, light is more powerful than dark. So for me, the mental, emotional concepts you work on this end do that quicker. But you still have to work at it. So in other words, if it took you 10 years of negative thought to give you the low back pain, chronic low back pain you can't get out of, you could have to do some pretty equal positive thoughts on the contrary. And the cool thing about this is once you turn that around, though, with a deep conscious awareness, then that actually can happen quicker. It's not going to take 10 years, okay? It's going to happen a lot quicker, but you're still going to take some effort to keep putting in. And that's how things change. When it's way out of balance, just one little thing may not be enough to move it all that way. You have to kind of keep working at it, chipping at it.
So can we actually manifest the accident
Yeah, I think
causes the imbalance?
Yeah, I think we do. And sometimes that will come up because it's bringing your attention to something else. Like, okay, I wouldn't have known this was here unless I had that accident and got this, shown to me. So sometimes that happens too. I mean, and if you look at things that way, you have to take everything as working in your favor because it's trying to help you out. Even if it's an accident, it's bringing very valuable information to you.
Right.
If you don't get pissed off at it, that's why it's your body, your friend, not your body is a jackass. You know what I mean? So,
My enemy.
yeah, exactly. That's a better way of putting it. I just kind of go improv. I'm not very good at improv. So.
You're okay.
So I was, now that I think about it, I could have colored this here, but this is something you can do on your own. It would just actually help you memorize anyway. So this is just basically the organs. It gives you a layout. Some people don't know any of this, so it gives you a layout of where the heart, lungs, and are. So for like the heart, what color would you paint it related to the 5 elements?
Red.
Red, right? The stomach, what color?
Yellow.
Yellow. The liver and gallbladder, green. The colon would be gray or black. Gray always is better in these
Right.
instances. A small intestine would be what?
Red.
Red. Good on. The thymus would also be considered part of that green. What else am I missing? Stomach, lungs. Lungs would be gray also. So you can sit here and color these locations.
Kidneys.
Kidneys, thank you. And kidneys are not on this picture just because the intestines are in the way. But kidneys are on the back and they would be blue. And I didn't put the black. It's funny that I left the whole water element off here. One of those things I need to look at. Of course, this is an old sheet, so I have to put a new one. Keep that aside to remind me to change that, color code it. This is a cool. So we're kind of going through all the different functions of the body, and this is really cool. Endocrines in the chakra system. Everybody here knows about chakras, right? Pretty much. The 7 chakras. Okay, the 7 chakras. The root one has to do with survival. The second is sexuality, creativity. The solar plexus is your personal power. Your heart is being able to love, accept love. It's unconditional love. It's not like sexual energy. That's down there. Your throat is communication. Third eye is like intuition. It's inner knowing. And the crown chakra is connection to God. So this is Edgar Casey actually did this, and I found this somewhere else. I color coded it. But basically, the Lord's Prayer is to balance out the chakra system. So it starts out, Our Father, which art in heaven, and that's like the little pituitary gland in the Ark of the Covenant. And so, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, the halo, right? And it goes down to 3, Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Remember, the throat is how you direct your will, right? So, thy will be done through your voice. Go down to 4, Give us this day our daily bread. So it has to do with survival. That's the lower root chakra. And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. That's that solar plexus, which has to do with personal power boundaries. Not pushing, being a bully, and not being bullied. And lead us not into temptation, which is the gonads, right? Which are very tempting. Gonads, tempting. Thymus, but deliver us from evil, which is the heart chakra, the love that finds the balance. For thine is the kingdom, moving up into the upper chakras, and the power, the pineal, and the glory forever. So that's really cool. Just by doing the Lord's Prayer and thinking about those different endocrine glands, chakras, you're balancing out the chakras, the endocrines, and your entire body. Because think about it. This is how it works. Your emotions come from where mostly, though? Your mind, your consciousness, right? So mind, emotions create neuropeptides, stimulation within the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus stimulates the pituitary gland, which is the endocrines, which dictates how much consciousness and awareness is in a given chakra. So right there is the whole leading process of how a mental thing becomes a physical component and a spiritual component related to the chakras. So.
On the side you have in earth as it is in heaven. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Because the in earth would be like the masculine chakras. In heaven would be the feminine balance, the yin and yang. What are you smiling about? I thought you were.
I smiled at her, that was all.
Oh.
And where did this come from?
Edgar Casey is the one
Okay.
that this. The Lord's Prayer and the 7 centers.
I didn't smile.
So your emotions create the hormones which control your chakra operation, which is pretty cool because that tells you that at any given moment, wherever your emotions are is dictating which chakra is open or closed and at the right place. If you're in a blissful open place, then they're all open and flowing. If you're angry, it's like your solar plexus blowing. Other ones will be closed off. Maybe your heart will be closed off when you're blowing. It depends on how out of balance you are.
So, at the bottom one, or adrenal, you've got colored red, so that's really the heart.
No, the adrenal, this is the chakra colors. The green is
Oh.
so the red is related to the root chakra.
Oh, okay.
Give us this our daily bread, which is survival, basic survival. We have to have that. Wow, we got finished fairly quickly today. Good, now I give some time for some tapping. My last page here, and some of you have already seen this, and to me this is just really amazing. And this is what drew me into the sphenoid and finding this information. This was handed to me in a class, a body talk class, and then I was like, there's got to be more to it. And then that's where I kind of got into the whole brain and studying the skull and found the sphenoid, and it just goes on and on from there. But this got me started with that. Ganesh, which is the elephant that's sitting next to a little statue, wooden statue there, it's the one that's supposed to remove obstacles out of your life. Of course, the only obstacle in your life that you're an adult is you. So it's really about getting you out of the freaking way. And that Ganesh is actually your lower reptilian brain. And the pictures here, especially the bottom 4 pictures, show exactly how that fits in. So if you turn, basically the view is like this. So if you're looking at if my brain was just here and looking at it, you would see Ganesh. You'd see this crown, and you'd see the different components, which is pretty amazing. So Ganesh is known as the god that removes obstacles in our lives. By praying, focusing on Ganesh, he removes the obstacles out of our life. So all these people that pray to Ganesh, praying to this being outside of themselves, are really, if they knew what they were doing, could focus on really this component within their own skull, within their own body, and really the visual isn't about Ganesh going through. Typically, this is how you view it: is you've got a problem, and the visual is Ganesh is this huge elephant with a big head. It's interesting that it's got a big head, right? And it rams through the problem. It breaks through the problem. But really what happens, in reality what happens, it's not about ramming something, it's about opening something. So this part of our brain has all these restrictive programs and templates that it works on, and it's the part of the brain that's just below and behind the Ark of the Covenant. And another interesting thing is in temples, you'll have the guard dogs or the Ganesh in the front of the temple. It's guarding the Holy of Holies, which is the higher aspect operating of the brain. And you can see by that skull, the temple is always represented with this huge open massive space. Right? You have the altar right there. The altar is the sphenoid bone. That skull is the huge, the church that you go inside of. And the altar is how you alter your consciousness, your reality, and your physical body. But you can't get to that part unless you get past the guard dogs and your restrictive mind. Because you cannot go into, and this is even biblically, you cannot go in and even think about interacting with the Ark of the Covenant for fear of burning to hell or just exploding, unless you had the right mentality, the right pure consciousness and cleansed energy. And that all that crap is what's blocking you. That reptilian brain blocks that from being able to access the higher mind. It limits your ability for the Kundalini energy to come up into your brain and fully enlighten you. So we do it in small little bursts, like, aha, then I can let go of this, and I got more and more light into me. You know what I mean? And there's moments in your life where sometimes it opens really big for a long time, like a near-death experience that happens to people. They're never the same. They're so altered because so much consciousness they let go of, they went into that altar that they're altered. So Ganesh actually has to open. It's not about pushing things away, it's about opening things up. That's not like y'all are laughing or snarking or something. Little jokes, no? Okay. No, Kitty's like, who, me? Oh, me, whatever.
You're projecting.
Someone's a little paranoid.
I must be. My little Ganesh is acting up.
That sounds like a personal problem.
Well, my Ganesh is personal. This is a complete internal process. For we ourselves, our perceptions, expectations, and beliefs are the obstacles in our lives. Ganesh is not an external god, even though we may manifest it in certain aspects of our life. And the thing about that is, when we project energy into something, we can create, and if you have enough people focusing on something, you can create this energy that, you can pray to. And there is a little bit of an interaction with it. But the reality of it is it's us that it goes back to. So Ganesh represents an actual physical part of the human animal anatomy, the reptilian brain. And remember, reptile, the devil, was the one that kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, right? And Adam and Eve are actually your pineal and pituitary gland. And in heaven is they were living in what? Communication with God. Direct communication with God all the time. So when we fell in consciousness from our higher brain, our pineal and our pituitary, which is actually the same setup as in a pyramid, you have the same pineal pituitary setup. You have the king's chamber, masculine, and the queen's chamber, so pineal pituitary, and it's in a pyramid. pyramid basically means fire in the middle. The fire in the middle of our head, remember everything's reflective. When we fell out of that consciousness, it's not like our pituitary and pineal fell out of there, but when we dropped out of our higher mind into our lower mind, and our lower mind, we let our lower reptilian devil mind take over, then what happens is we were unable to have direct known communication to God. But it's always still happening. We're just blind to it. So the goal of our life, if you want to give yourself a goal, is to rise back up out of our own devil restrictive minds and back into direct communication with God all the time, which is already always there. It's not like we can't have it. It's there. So the brain is Ganesh. The pons is the face. You can see that there. The eyes are the trigeminal nerve. It's really cool how that works. The cerebellum is the ears, and the trunk is basically the spinal cord. So if you followed that all the way down, you'd go all the way down to the end of the spinal cord. That's an elephant. And you can imagine, back then, when people, and we tend to think that we're the most civilized civilization that's been around, or the most advanced, let me put it that way. But they were taking people's brains out of the head and doing all these things way back when. I know of a book that somebody's trying to translate. It goes back to an Ayurvedic book, and it's actually plastic surgery without any anesthesia, without stitches, without any of that. And
Divination?
what is it?
Divination?
I'm not sure. I just heard about they're trying to translate it, but it's an old text. So they were doing things way back when that we don't even think, like the pyramid. They still don't know how the pyramid was built, right? So this information was around for a long time, and I'm sure they studied the body. And things tend to be more poetic. So the further we get away from God, we get less poetic. So like poems and things like really spiritual have this poetic. So I can imagine when somebody's looking at the body, it's like, whoa, that looks like an elephant, And then they have these stories that they make up. Like Ganesh, the story of Ganesh, he is an elephant that this princess made. I think it was not Shiva. Shiva's
Shiva's the father.
Yeah, Shiva is Shiva's consort, which is the pituitary gland. But Ganesh guards the cave to her, which is exactly what the Ganesh does. It guards the cave to the pituitary, which is the feminine component, and the pineal is Shiva. So, and Shiva is always shown as having a triton. And Ganesh has a triton on his head, and the devil has a triton, right? So we have, at any given moment, we have to choose who is in control of our triton. And the triton is a trigeminal nerve, which are the eyes out of the Ganesh. And that trigeminal nerve is a three-pronged nerve that goes out into the mouth, the nose, the eye, the senses. And when you look at it, it makes like the area it covers is like a mask we have. So if we're in our lower brain and letting that operate us, it's like the devil's got a hold of the triton. If we're in our higher mind, then Shiva's got a hold of that triton. So the ideal is that we're letting our higher mind be in control of all our senses and how we project onto the world and how we receive the world. Any questions there? I think I covered pretty much everything. It seemed extremely fast for me. We've done. Any part anybody want to go over? We're going to have time for a tapping. Anybody have a particular thing that they want to cover? Maybe I went too fast over or anything? You luck out there's no homework on this group.
It would be
Go ahead.
question. It would be like the reptilian has memory. It has really memory.
Well, memory's all over the body. Bruce Lipton did the study of cell biology. He's a cell biologist who was really science-related until he had like a spiritual awareness that everybody thought that the DNA, the nucleus of the cell was the brain. But actually it turns out that it's the reproductive system. And he said that, he uses the joke that, men scientists thought, that the reproductive system was the brain, of course. But when he took the nucleus out, the cell was still alive. And what he learned is that the cell membrane is actually the brain. And you look at the word membrane, membrane, it's your memory brain. Your brain is your entire body. There's different components all over, but the entire body you have is the brain. You have neuropeptide tissue everywhere. And this right here is called the second brain, your gut. You produce 90% of your serotonin and 50% of your dopamine in your gut. not in your brain. So if you eat a certain way, accept certain things into your body, it affects your brain function. So your consciousness, your brain is all over. And it's hard to, you say your whole thing is the mind, body, brain, it's one thing. And then we just take parts out to look at different components. So the pineal and pituitary are certain aspects of the entire membrane, but it's all one huge brain. You could even look at your skeletal system as being part of that brain. It's going to have memory and things in it within it too.
Really would be like more like the electrical impulse or the energy,
What part are you talking
the
about?
pulsation. Well, no, that's not it. I was talking about the reptilian.
The reptilian brain.
The brain.
Uh-huh.
It looks like, it seems because it has memories
Right.
of survival.
Okay, yeah. So your reptilian brain is all about survival. Okay, and the center brain, the limbic brain, so we have reptile, bird brains on top of that, and then we have mammalian brain. And then on top of that, we have the prefrontal cortex, which is what humans have over all the other animals, except maybe dolphins, which why they kind of suspect dolphins are higher conscious. There's dogs, right? Dogs go back from here. There's no prefrontal cortex. Most animals don't. Primates have, even primates have they don't go back as far. So your brain has different, your brain is the entire body, but let's just look at the brain itself. The reptilian brain is all about survival issues. It's considered the lower brain, okay? So when we're in the lower brain, we're actually in the vibration of hell, okay? Because hell isn't someplace you go visit, it's in your life right now, or it's not, right? And the higher you go, we transition from hell into heaven, and we fluctuate all the time out of those. So the center part is the emotional brain, and then the more advanced part is how we actually get into creating and projecting. That's the prefrontal, which humans can do over animals. So yeah, when the survival brain is in charge, it's accessing memories, which are all over the body. It's all over the body. It's not like memories trapped in one part of your brain. This means when this brain's in charge, it's accessing certain memory. Because you don't have just like, okay, I remember when my dad got drunk and got pissed off and beat me up. It's not like that was all that happened. There were certain hits to the certain parts of the body. That memory is actually in the tissue. In the tissue and the posture you were in when that happened. So it's the whole body is the brain. This part of the brain just accesses survival issues. This is going to access more emotional, and this is going to start accessing more of the unconditional love, and this is accessing your power. If you're stuck here, and we fluctuate all the time, the whole idea is to use the whole brain together, okay, as one complete unit. Everything's opening and connected to one another. But when you're stuck here down in survival, all you're accessing is anything related to survival, that's it. So all these old patterns, your memory's all over. So, sometimes when you have a knee problem, then you have the memory of the problem there too. So you can go get it cut out in surgery. If you don't remove the memory around it or the charge, then it'll still have problems. So the whole entire body is the memory.
So it will be more that what we remember. It will be the impression, right?
Yeah, the impression. It could just be a feeling sometimes.
Impression and any trauma will leave us. Whether physical or emotional. Yeah,
it's whatever's stuck behind. The idea is you get all those charges gone, so nothing's on your membrane to get filtered through. So if I'm a cell, the cells aren't smooth. They have all these antennas on there. So whatever comes on and docks onto my antenna, I decide from the docking whether I'm going to let it in or keep it out, right? So if I've got a charge on something, I'm going to draw certain things to my membrane, and I'm going to repel certain things. So if I'm operating from a certain mentality, let's say restriction, I'm actually not going to be able to receive abundance even if it came up and touched me. Even if abundance came up, it wouldn't stick to me. I wouldn't be able to open up to it. Or a good relationship if you got the other opposite going on. So the entire body is the membrane, the entire thing. The brain is how you access different components of it, as is the skeletal system. It's just a one complete unit. And we have to take it apart. We take it in pieces to look at it, But all these maps overlap together, and they work together.
The brain would be the one who would interpret.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, if you're stuck in here, you're going to be interpreting that experience or whatever's coming at you. Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way of looking at it, as survival. Whereas here, you may be looking at it too emotionally. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, you can look at it as the interpreter. The brain. That's a good way of looking at the brain, the interpreter. Because if you interpret something, then you send the signals to the rest of the body.
And we do that throughout our beliefs.
Beliefs, perceptions, expectations, all those things, yeah. But ideally is you don't have any of those charges, and therefore you experience everything just as it is, instead of creating certain limitations. So, who has something related to, going back to the homework, the first night's homework with muscle pain, or let's go with muscle pain. And even if you don't have your homework page, I guess it doesn't matter. Does anybody have a particular muscle pain that they want to address? Y'all choose.
Whoever should. I'll pass. I don't want to. My same old, same old.
Same old, same old.
Wonderful thing.
Just move your chair.
Nah, I need to move. Thank you.
So with this one, you're going to keep out your muscle sheets. We're going to look at those, and also so pull out your 2 muscle sheets and the emotion sheet. Excuse me.
John, I got a question on this.
Yeah.
Is number 4 and 16 the same?
Which page is that?
On this one?
4 and 16.
Yeah, they're both going to 4 and 16. Are they going to the same spot?
4 is right beside the nose.
Oh.
See, that gray doesn't show up too good. And then this is below the nose and below the lips.
Yeah, so 4 is here.
There's a light. What necessary, Jim?
4 is here.
Yes.
Okay.
Here you go.
That's what I was looking for.
Hard on.
You panic about those on you? Oh, the water?
Yeah, a charge on what you just said.
You heard what I said?
I heard what you said.
Oh.
She heard what you said. She has a charge of what you said.
Actually, it came up for me when you were going over something, a charge on something. Oh,
What's
you talking
your-
about, I think that was somebody's father when they were. Actually, I should share this.
Okay.
It's kind of just because of what you just said that brought it up, but, I became aware this week that I've been kind of working on the unforgiveness thing, think I've cleared a lot of it, and I just kind of pay attention when something comes up. And Sandy's saying she thought she had forgiven, that she would realize that there were layers, or whatever, however she said it. But I realized that I had forgiven my father I think I have, for things that I think he did because his stepfather abused him. And then I realized, well, I haven't really forgiven my grandpa for abusing my father.
You just like trying to let the blame kind of go back a little bit.
Like
you could forgive your father, but now you have a new blame.
Yeah, and I carried that around worse than I did for what my dad did to me. Mm-hmm. And I never really resolved it with my grandfather. And because I thought, well, he's dead, I can't do it now. I mean, I know I can. In my brain, I know I can, but emotionally, I was still blocky. And you just reminded me that one of the ways that my dad mistreated me was he threw water in my
Get
face.
the hell out. See, would that come up?
And it came up over there, and
See,
then you said,
This is the funny thing
and
about.
couldn't help but react. Normally, I would just ignore it.
This is the funny thing about consciousness, though, okay? And this is why I sometimes get in trouble, because I'm doing this unintentionally, but I do it all the time, that people can get offended because I'm saying things that I'm cueing into, and to me, it'll come to me like a joke or something. And before I can catch it, it'll come out, and it will be offensive or something to somebody, but because it's deeper. So she was sitting in the
You didn't
chair.
offend me.
No, I'm just
Anyway.
saying. I said it can.
But
So-
it hit a charge.
yeah, it hit a charge. So she's sitting in the chair, and then during this whole thing, she comes up and starts memorizing. We're thinking that she hasn't forgiven her father, and for issues, and she kind of transferred the blame to her grandfather. But then, when she comes up here to sit down, I said, "Would you bring this up for me to throw it in your face and start?" Yeah, that's it.
Did you see my reaction or not?
No, I didn't.
You weren't looking.
Because to me, it was just one of
It
those.
was just a joke.
It was a state. It was like a vibe that came through me, and it's like, that's one of those antennas, right? I've trained myself to be open to all these things, and sometimes it comes in as a crazy joke. If I'm not in the right mode of catching it, I didn't catch it and had it. So all I said is, if you freak out, am I supposed to throw this in your face?
Well, I knew you were joking.
But then she said her father used to get her by throwing water in. But the joke did not come from me. It absolutely did not come from me. Because if you look at that this makes, if you really can conceive just what happened, that's very deep. That means whatever we just played out was related to, and I thought she said the water was charged, but I bet it was, because she's sitting here holding this water, and this issue comes up, and then she hands it to me, and then all of a sudden I say that, right?
Because she charged it with the thoughts that she was
Right.
having.
What
earlier.
I was referring was the charge I experienced when I knew you were totally joking.
Yeah, no, and
Dr.
Dr. Emoto talks about water holding charge. So here you are having this thing, your water's holding this charge, plus you bring up a water, and then that joke is first. Why would I say that?
Why would you say that?
Yeah.
It just.
That's why I did a double take, but he didn't see me. It's like,
Wow.
So.
I brought it here to drink, actually.
We might want to bless that water from the store.
Yosemite Sam came to mind.
And that made me think of a geyser.
Mine's a great.
No, that's Yellowstone. Oh,
Well, Yosemite National Park is real.
yeah, it's
So-
up there somewhere.
Since water is the call to somebody read water. Read kidney preferably.
Escapism, fear, guilt, powerless, broken will, deep disappointment, demoralized, bad news, fright, deep exhaustion, survival, brutal, terror, lack of confidence, and want to run.
More than that. Let's just put it that way.
So there again is this cosmic thing. The water cleans. The water we just the water.
You want to know the muscle I came up with?
Was it a kidney muscle or bladder?
I don't know if they're
What was
related.
go tell me the muscle.
They're more related to adrenal, I think, from what I was
Well, the
reading.
adrenal
The adrenal cell
It-
comes the kidneys.
I know. Anyway, well, it's all connected, so it's not just one muscle, but
Okay.
I think it stems from the lower back all the way down. And then lately I've even had the calf, which I realized now is adrenal. So,
Yeah, and calves are adrenals. They relate to the triple warmer. Triple warmer is your Dantian, it's your battery.
and that came up on the original homework before we.
You had a lot of that. Well, here's the thing about the Dantian and the kidneys is when you're born, what they call your natal chi, it comes from your parents and it's stored in your kidneys. Okay, so if you had a weak parental chi, or a weak dowry energy-wise, that consciousness or that limitation energy is passed on to you. So it sounds like to me there's an ancestral issue. Remember that the adrenals tie into what chakra?
Root.
Okay. And what's another term for, don't answer this. What's another term for where you come from? The people you come from?
Genetic.
No. Your blank.
Get back to your,
Ancestor. The ancestors are right, but there's another term for
it was.
these people.
Physically
These
laid
It was a
out.
movie.
Oh, yeah. Dictionary. Let's get dictionary.
Sounds like.
No. What's another term for it? Like you say, these are my blank related to
Go back
ancestry.
to your
Thank you, Deborah.
gene.
That's
If
okay.
you physically, no, if you physically laid it out on a piece of paper, you drew it, what would that be?
It has
If you-
roots. My roots, okay.
Right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So,
Your family tree has,
roots, right?
Okay.
So the adrenals, the root chakra, that's your ancestry, because we walk around on our ancestry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust,
Oh, okay, I get it now.
So this is going to be tied into pretty much an ancestral issue, stuck in the water of your body.
And you had said that to me months and months ago, but I did not get it at all. I mean, understand.
What was it?
You had, during a Reiki session, you had told me that you thought I had ancestral split, I think you called it.
So let's look at that, because your feet are related to rooting down to the ground, being touched to your roots, right? So with the left leg, the polio's left that left leg compromised in an area. You're lacking a really strong root connection to your ancestry that supposedly supports you, right? Because you would not be where you are, because we all stand on the shoulders of our ancestry, okay? So you're like at the peak of that, the point of that, and it keeps growing and growing. So that there's a disconnection from your roots, which is your root chakra, which feeds your physical body. There's a disconnect from Mother Earth, and it's the left side. So there's an imbalance there related to that. And that disconnection doesn't give you the energy and feed you as far as moving and supporting, being that foundation for yourself. That was lacking. So
bladder has some parts to it.
what sticks out there, Steve?
Not standing on your own feet,
Yep.
which is the big one. It starts off with irritated, suspicious, pissed off, timid, shamed, very upset, feeling paralyzed, not standing on own feet, shyness, hurt, helplessness, or helpless, unfulfilled yearning, embarrassed, self-pity, and resignation. The resignation and not standing on own feet are the ones that stood out.
So this could be very deep.
It's-
Deep roots. So what appears to be a low back pain, which is, well, low back is what? What's the echo? Support, right? She doesn't have the ancestral support that she needed. And that came up in a DNA way too. Anyway, there was a susceptibility to something there. That strength didn't come in. That spinal, the energy in general, the roots, fitting the kidneys, fitting the adrenal system, fitting that triple warmer, which is her battery and her energy. So, what were you going to present them besides calf pain?
Well, the pain that I'm most experiencing is hip and here.
IT.
Tonight.
Oh, that's what you're asking about that IT.
Particularly tonight.
Okay. That's why you're asking about the IT then?
No, it's just an issue for the
Okay.
last couple of weeks because it's come up synchronicitously and I discovered that many of the symptoms that I have, I ran across something about it and it's like, oh God, that's me.
What did it say?
See where my memory then demonstrates, but it's like as far as symptoms, I couldn't tell you right now what they were. It was like they were me.
I'm going back, I'm being drawn back to the whole water thing. So, I just want to get this in my mind. Did he just actually throw water on you?
Well, there's two ways that he did.
Okay.
One was a very traumatic experience, the other was the way he woke me up to go to school. So the other one was for sighing when I had to do dishes, and then moving away on the floor, and it was water in my face.
What, like on the floor?
Instead of putting us in a corner, it had to be something that would really be a consequence. So
Yeah.
somehow we got the idea that it would hurt if we laid on the floor with our nose on the floor. It would be uncomfortable, and we would learn our lesson. Well, see, I know now. Well, I won't get up on that. Anyway, the more I pieced a lot of it together in my head about him in my adulthood, but as a child, well, I was, let's see, about,
Did one
I was
instance?
about 10, maybe 9 or 10. But anyway, I was crying because of the extremeness of the punishment compared to what I did. But at least in my mind,
Was there a drowning incident?
my brother almost drowned before my eyes,
Okay. I'm talking about you.
but not me. No. In fact, I learned to swim early as a therapy for polio.
Okay, so going back to this being thrown water on, because the thing about kidney is there's extremes. There's fear, and you know all the emotions are positive. You have to have emotions. You know, spidey tingling is important if you're about to go into an alley and you know if you're getting this vibe, something's wrong, right? Remember, this doesn't come from you. You're picking up these vibes. So fear is healthy. Anger is healthy. Things will not change for the better unless you get angry. If you're in a bad, horrible relationship and you're like just laying there like a wet noodle and getting beat all the time, that's not healthy. Getting pissed off is fucking healthy. But there's extremes. There's an awareness which fear stimulates, and then there's terror. Okay, this is going into the realm of terror, using terror tactics to try to get someone to bend to your will. Okay, that's what was used, and that doesn't go away. That gets stored really, really deep because you try to repress it and you think you're done with it. But that's where I'm being drawn to go with, is the terror, which paralyzes you. It's like, we'll go back to that water element, remember I said about being froze? It's like part of her is frozen. And what's interesting is maybe this is not just her that it was, but maybe it's actually something that's gone through the ancestral component of being frozen in their tracks comes to mind. Because in a way, you're frozen in your tracks.
My father was frozen in his tracks.
See about the water, the frozen right, her inability to move forward, that's a frozen track thing. So I'm just kind of tapping into whatever comes to me right now. But I'm mostly on the middle fingers, pericardium. It's more just an access point. If you tap into some really old stuff, deep stuff, sometimes the tapping is just for show. It's just whatever we express mentally in the energy play. Because anytime you're tapping on someone, there's an energy going on. The tapping is just the tip of the iceberg. So like me, you hear I've done this? I've been doing this the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I'm helping process whether I'm verbalizing it.
Let's go, Mark.
I was also picking up a lot of it. I'm sitting here playing with my second toe,
Gallbladder.
which is triple warmer. I would what?
Triple warmer?
Maybe I got that. Oh.
It's gallbladder, but
Gallbladder.
you were drawn to triple warmer.
I was drawn to look at triple warmer.
But the triple warmers is what she presented first because that's the adrenal. So
Yeah.
what did you get there?
The last four of it is having the right for self-expression, not being heard, not being seen, and repressed.
Yeah.
Was what was really coming from.
Yeah, never.
And you're also sitting on that lift.
Yeah, I am.
Which is restricting.
Right, think so. So whenever you tap into somebody, and like when she came up here and I said that, you know, soon as if you're really open and practice this, you tune into people really quickly. So as soon as she came up here, I've already went into the posture that's related to her. So I'm going to do some conscious languaging and see if you can't shift some of that up for me. Okay.
Well, I don't know if it has what it has to do with for sure, but when you were talking about the way you were sitting, I've been aware that a lot, mentally anyway, I have often felt like if I could feel comfortable sitting on my left hip, then it would take it's like I've been on this hip for so long, it's part of being lean on, you know.
So are you still sitting on this one more, even right now?
Always I sit on, because anytime I shift to this hip, there's a discomfort that I can't.
You can't pinpoint?
I can't, yeah, I can't really, I can't.
But over accentuate leaning onto this hip, just for the people to see.
This chair doesn't fit me, so I'm
Yeah.
not really sitting the way I would.
Yeah.
I,
You're sitting more right now.
you
though,
can't, you probably can't tell by looking at me.
But if you're
I
gonna
can
lean, if you're
feel
gonna lean onto your hip, on your right hip, what would you do?
That's what I'm doing. If you're doing
Yeah, you
all the
lean,
way over.
okay?
Yeah.
And if we receive from the left and we give from the right, what does this posture mean?
Too much.
It's the more dominant side.
You're trying to open it up and let more things
Going back to the terror, going back to the thing we're on,
You're moving away from receiving.
yes, this is a runaway pattern.
go through.
I'm running away
Leaning
from
the
somebody
juice.
hitting me. This is a posture of a very scared child.
Well, that's interesting, because when he threw it, it was on this side. That he
It
threw
doesn't matter, it's the energy pattern. So I'm just drawn to the kidneys, let's focus on these. This is pretty deep, this may not be all clear up in one
There
session.
you go again.
Tuck your leg again.
We'll be working on this on Thursday.
Can somebody-
What? I need somebody to sit on his feet. I need somebody.
See, I just crossed,
You just crossed them and
with my
pushed up.
left behind too.
Yeah.
So as I'm doing this, I'm processing too with her,
I need some
so.
clarification on that. She said that he threw water in the face, but one of the most horrible things was lay down on the floor, and she had her face down on.
That was all the time, I mean, not but, what.
To me, that makes it a bigger mess. And then you're supposed to clean up the mess after that?
I don't, probably. I can't remember
How did
that
the
part.
water get in his face? Was he face down?
That was separate.
Oh, it's separate, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Well-
what you mean. Okay.
Actually, he was more forceful, so it would get in my face from that position.
Oh, like from the side then?
Yeah, he was like bending.
But
down.
to me, you had to like throw a bunch of water on somebody to force, that doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? If I was gonna punish somebody, pouring water on their head is not gonna do enough pressure.
The water was for crying.
Oh, that's super
Yeah,
interesting.
it's just a form of humiliation.
Yeah, but no,
Right.
let's take it back more to the
See, I-
energy. But the energy form we want to go back to, he said for crying. And what is crying? What?
Well, he didn't say it was
It's a
for crying, but I
release.
knew it.
Well, it's kind of like that.
Every time
Well,
I
if
you're
cried,
gonna
he
cry, I'm
would
gonna
throw
give you
more
something to
water
cry
on
about.
It's
me.
water. It's water. It's water. Whatever he was doing from his energy pattern, he was unable to process crying. He was unable to process.
He wasn't allowed to cry,
Okay,
Oh,
well, that
so
tells
I
you.
think.
So, now I had a little
So-
shift there. So that tells me we're on the right track there because something shifted. And it's interesting. I wasn't aware before, but now my tailbones are my tailbones.
You
You
got
got
Don't have to-
one?
Don't have to.
I'm not feeling the pressure here.
It's his regular one and a funky one.
She's got pressure now.
No, she said she's not feeling the pressure.
It's not feeling strong.
So, but I felt my two ischium, which are your sit bones. I felt them. I felt the presence in both of them.
Kind of balance out.
Yeah. So see, I'm doing kidneys here, but the talking is what's doing most of the shifting, right? Because ultimately, all it is you get the consciousness thing that's holding that in place. You can let go of it like that. It can transform like that. All this other stuff we play with is just what we're playing with to get to the point where we can do more and more of what we want to do. So I want to keep going on this theme, just talking about the different levels of it. There's a rocking forward, that's a good one. A lot of throat shit too. So it was a form of humiliation, like Joyce said, but it was punishment, terror. So he was instilling terror. It was not just like, punish you. It had to be, in a way, like a fearful thing, so that you would fear it, so you wouldn't do it again.
It was the water that bothered me. I was used to lay on the floor, like go stand in the corner,
Mhm.
lay on the floor. You know?
Was it carpeted?
No.
Okay.
That'd be a huge mess. So if you can, you mentioned something that we just kind of glossed over. You said there was a regular punishment, and then one time there was something.
Well, regular
Your
punishment
leg?
was, well, it's because.
I don't care what you say you're doing.
Stretching this muscle.
Yes.
I do it over there, I do it over there.
It's called subconscious.
Anyway,
Anyway,
now, the laying on the floor was the regular punishment for anything that we broke the rules for.
okay. So throwing water in your face was the
That was
added.
a one-time only thing because I was crying. He never did that before.
But he also used it to wake you up.
Well, that
in the
was,
mornings.
there was a whole different energy with that, though. It was just, you won't get up any other way. If you would, I wouldn't do that, you know.
So,
I felt like, that's interesting, because I felt like I deserved the water for not getting up.
so basically he
But I
was,
was angry all my life, so evidently I didn't.
so basically he was unable to make things happen in his life unless he felt like he had to really push him, force him.
That makes sense,
So,
yeah. He stayed home to protect his younger sister when he would have liked to have left.
seem to have lost that thread. Well, maybe it's disappeared though.
So your mom was okay with all this? Or your dad raised you?
No, they were both there, and it was a point of contention. Not just me, just the way their differences in childhood. But, something you said earlier, right? Something about ancestors and support.
Yeah, I was like to go back to that because I lost the thread I was on.
Oh. You were talking about not receiving,
Support, foundation from your ancestors.
yeah. I can't remember what you said, but it brought something up with me a lot. I think you said something about a split between my parents. I don't know if it was a split or something between my parents when you were talking about, or between parents.
That's just talking about the receiving and moving forward. Receiving support from your roots, from your ancestors. The root chakra energy goes up through the bottom of the foot, to the kidneys and adrenals. As with your ancestry, the roots.
Well, it's not coming up for you now, but something you said made me think about how my parents, I don't think they were able to support me because they had a major rift about me. I believe that my dad thought that I wasn't his because I think he thought my mother messed around when he was gone in the service.
Okay.
And so I think it affected the parenting that I had.
So what about your mom? Tell me about her.
She,
So the masculine taking on support, that feeling like the feminine had betrayed. So here's having to take on a lot more or accept this, where maybe it wasn't, the blame, pointing the finger, and just playing. So.
I'm having a hard time hearing you today. About my mother.
So what about your mom?
I don't really understand, but he wouldn't let her raise me how the way traditional mothers would when they had a baby. And this was before the polio. I was 7 months old when
So how was it different?
he wouldn't let her rock me. He wouldn't let her go pick me up when I cried.
Well, that can all be related to his perceived betrayal.
Right. Well, I don't, yeah, right. Which I understand. But at the same time, my mother, now to me, with my son, I would have done it anyway. You know?
Right, so your mom caved in.
Yeah, and that's what I have not understood. And she did actually tell me, that's how I knew about it. She told me as an adult, I was like in my 30s when I found out.
See, I'm wanting to cross my leg again then. So I caught myself. No, but what I'm saying is she caved in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go.
So there you go.
was looking for.
Ah, yeah.
So what's interesting is, you weren't born with polio, but being in this environment, who knows? I'm not saying that they caused it, but could be that the struggle between mommy and daddy showed up in a particular way. Remember, the needs are relationships. The needs are relationships and how they relate to one another. So you've got that within the legs, being able to move forward in a healthy relationship. Your legs have to be in a healthy relationship. You cannot walk forward. Okay? You just can't. So here you have the knees. There's also a concept that if you can't cross your legs like this in a comfortable way for like an extended period of time,